Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Women Winning Wednesdays. I'm your host, Maryland attorney Elsa W. Smith, and I'm also the owner of the law offices of Elsa W. Smith, where our mission is to empower women through estate planning. Today's episode, we're going to talk for a few minutes about 5 problems that you may face when a loved one dies. I'm going to put that on the screen. There you go. So for those taking notes, 5 problems you may face when a loved one dies. Now, why did I choose this as my topic? The 5 problems that I'm going to highlight are just some that have been experienced by my clients and some by prospective clients, while they're in my office sharing these issues. And these are some of the most common ones that I've heard of. And by the way, if you hear me or when you hear me use the term decedent, that refers to the person who has just died. Okay, so that's a term, decedent. Now, let's jump right into it. The first problem that you may face when a loved one dies is paying for the funeral. Yeah. Um, was there insurance? Was there, some sort of pre-need arrangement with a local funeral home? And when I'm talking about insurance, that includes burial or final expenses insurance. Um, from my research, this type of insurance is a whole life policy that pays for funeral expenses when you die. And there are several companies that offer this type of insurance. So do your research. What some of the expenses that burial insurance typically covers is a burial plot, caskets, cremation, flowers, funeral home services, grave opening and closing, headstones, the obituary notice, and urn services. So there are a number of things that can be taken care of with burial insurance. Like I said, the point is, how you're going to, how the funeral is paid for. And if your loved one doesn't have either this type of insurance or some other monies set aside in preparation, for their passing, this is a good opportunity for you to have a conversation with your loved one and at least get them thinking about what they can do to lessen the blow and lessen the burden on those that they leave behind. Like I said, touchy issue. It gets a little complicated when a particular loved one may not have readily accessible funds. That's why I mentioned the use of insurance as a possible, underline possible, way of paying for funeral expenses. So the next issue that you may encounter is locating the will. Do you even know whether there was a will or not? In this case, you want to ask family members. Unfortunately, paperwork can get misplaced, hidden in desks, dresser drawers, and loved ones. A decedent may die before they're able to discuss their estate plan, their wishes, and anything else with their family. If it's appropriate, enlist the help of family members to look in different places in the home where the decedent might have stored the will for safekeeping, again, if this is appropriate. And also determine if the decedent had a safety deposit box. If they did, but if they were the sole owner, then you may have to seek a court order in order to open the safety deposit box. So keep that in mind. And the other tip, again, we're trying to locate the will, is to check with the Register of Wills in the county where the decedent lived. If it was filed, they will have it. And once the person dies, that will is a matter of public records. So they can at least tell you that there is original will stored there uh, with the court. So the third problem that you may face is that the personal representative has died, um, and there is no successor. Now, so let's say you have the will, but the person named as the personal representative has died and no successor was named. So, what do you do? Well, the court can appoint a personal representative. You would need to contact the Register of Wills where the decedent resided for more information. Um, you know what? I hopped over something I wanted to talk about. I want to go back to locating the will for a second. It's something important. Let's say that in the process of you hunting down the will, you find a copy, but not the original. Can you use the copy to start the probate process? Well, the answer is yes. Maryland law does allow one to petition the court to do so. Okay, so the court's got to okay it first. The personal representative has to certify that he or she has done a diligent search for the will, but just can't find the original. They've also got to certify that whether the or state whether the original is either destroyed, has been destroyed, or if it's lost. And just one other thing on this point is to keep in mind that the personal representative has the burden of proving that the decedent did not destroy the will with the intention of revoking it. Okay. Because that's also a possibility too. You know, they had regrets right at the end of their life and they decided to just tear up their will, and that's why you can't find it. So that can lend itself to some interesting challenges for people who it's called a caveat, those who want to challenge the will that is presented to the court. They can allege that it was not, in fact, the decedent's last wish. They had second thoughts, what have you. So just keep that in mind. I just wanted to just hop back and go to it. I know I'm a little bit out of order, but hey, you guys are taking notes and it'll be fine. So we've talked about number 3. And now we are going to hop to number 4, the payment of estate expenses. So who pay, like before, what we were talking about before is who pays for the funeral, who pays for copies of the death certificate, who pays for incidental expenses that need to be paid, right then and there, and who pays the lawyer to take the case through probate, right? Now, as a general rule, the estate is responsible for any debts after the death and throughout the estate administration process. But in practical terms, this means that if you personally incur expenses when you say pay for the decedent's dog, that was left behind, you can bill the estate to receive compensation for those expenses. Now, it's crucial that you keep detailed records of any expenses like these that you incur. The estate will not pay you back immediately. You have to wait for the court to appoint a representative and begin paying debts of the estate. But so it's not until the court authorizes that payment to be made that you can actually get payment from the estate. Sometimes people, try to jump the gun. And that's actually an unauthorized withdrawal from the estate if the court has not authorized that. So you need to be really careful about that. Um, but the at the end of the day, you're entitled to be compensated for anything that the estate should have paid. All right. And then the last point, as we are wrapping up here, is family drama. Oof. Now, family drama can take different forms. I'll share a story with you, a very sad one actually. A woman who I know of whose significant other died. So they were not married, but they have a minor child in common, a little girl. And prior to this gentleman's death, the family was, they had a decent relationship with her. They were kind to her as well as the minor child. However, once he died, it's like the nails came out, the daggers came out, and they tried to shut this woman out of everything, all the funeral arrangements. They just were blocking her out and making her feel, like other, like, just not, you're not part of us, you're not included, just stay away. So that was the message they were communicating to her. So in the midst of her grieving, she had to deal with this kind of drama, like, what's going on? Why are you shutting me out? So, not to mention the fact that the minor child is seeing all this tension and drama. She didn't ask for it, but this is what it is. So that's very unfortunate. Then there's another example I've heard of when people, even siblings, just stop talking to each other and no one knows why. Like after someone dies, and then people just all of a sudden they just stop talking to each other. Or if they do say something, no one will talk about the reason why there's this, all of a sudden this tension. There may have been unresolved conflicts that are just bubbling to the surface, or just about when this person died. And this person may have been, in some families, the glue that held, the family together. And now that person's no longer there. So all the drama, all the headaches, all the conflicts are just rising to the surface. So, that's just something that you need to be prepared for. And things like this happen in the quote unquote best of families, whatever that means. But it's unfortunate. You have to be prepared for it. Death is a very jarring, traumatic experience, and people process death in different ways. As we've been told by therapists who have been on this show, it's not easy. So, meanwhile, you're there just trying to get some information from this particular family member in order to move the case along, and you have no idea that there's all this like cloud of drama, um, around you. So, I mention these two examples because estate planning and estate administration, or probate, it involves human beings, it involves families. And families can be complicated, as my colleagues who handle family law matters will attest. They're complicated. And if it's necessary to seek the help of a professional therapist or a counselor to help guide families through certain trauma, you're really encouraged to do so. Um, but sometimes that's not an option. Sometimes you are the one. You are the person who has got to shepherd this estate through the process in the midst of this, hailstorm that may be going on around you, and you just honestly you have to do the best you can. It really helps to have the assistance of a professional, an estate administration, a probate attorney by your side, shepherding you, holding your hand throughout the process, even though as personal representative, the job is yours to, you know, do the things that personal representatives are required to do. Get an accounting of the estate and all the other things, but an attorney can help you fulfill your duties as personal representative if that falls on you, if you are the one that's appointed. And we've talked about very briefly, we've talked about 5 different problems that you may face when a loved one dies. So I've talked about the problems. So what's the solution? Attorney Smith, you talked about problems. What's the answer? Well, I don't have a crystal ball to tell you what the magic solution is, but what I can tell you is you can lessen the stress, you can lessen the headaches and the drama if you engage in estate planning on the front end. You, as the one who, we all have an expiration date. So if we want to lessen the tension on our families, on the ones that we leave behind, I've always said that an estate plan is a love letter to your family. You cared enough about them that you don't want to leave them in a state of chaos and confusion when you die. So, because of that, you're going to write down what it is that you want to happen when you die. What do you want to happen with your body? What do you want to happen with your assets? Make it clear and easy to follow, and leave instructions so that others can, fulfill your wishes. And for family members who are, reaching out to a loved one, say, who may be, senior in age or may have ill health, talk to them, ask them if they have, their estate planning documents in place. And if they're still in, a relatively healthy state where they can execute documents, where they are still have the presence of mind to do so, then encourage them to at least get some things in order. Um, these topics are not easy in many cases to approach someone about, but it's so important. I can't stress that enough. The ones that you leave behind, they're the ones that are going to have to pick up the pieces. They, picture the world when you are no longer here. And I've had some people, just flat out say, well, I don't care, I'm not going to be here, and I could, give a rip, pardon the expression. you know um what happens when I'm dead and gone? Well, I mean, that's certainly your right to have that perspective, but um if you care about those you're leaving behind, that's a rather selfish way to look at things. You may not care, but there are other people that may care about you, and they're left behind to pick up the pieces. So the least you can do is give them some breadcrumbs, some guidance, so that your final chapter is not one of just utter chaos, because it's not fair. It's not fair to them, and I don't think that's the legacy that you want to leave. So, I hope these points have been helpful, if nothing else, to raise awareness of, again, some of the problems that you may face when a loved one dies. The key is like communication. At the end of the day, talk to your loved ones. Um, Find a convenient time in which to sit down and bring up certain topics. It's uncomfortable, but it's necessary. So, like I said, I hope that's been helpful. This is a shorter video, a shorter episode than usual, but I hope you've gotten value from it. And as always, if you need estate planning or estate administration assistance in the state of Maryland, I encourage you to get in contact with our firm at 410-995-7719. The information is at the bottom of the screen and has been scrolling throughout this video. You can also reach out and check out our YouTube channel at Elsa W. Smith Law. We have free video content for you to consume. Again, these episodes are educational as well as hopefully motivational too. I hope it motivates you to not only get your estate planning done, but get that of your loved ones in order. This is Elsa W. Smith, your Maryland estate planning attorney, thanking you for joining me for another episode of Women Winning Wednesdays, and I will see you soon on the next episode. Be well, everyone. Take care.